Yo, I'm Brendan. Public is one of the most improved investing services since I last reviewed it, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. So what features have they added and changed? What products can be a game changer for us normal people investors? And also I want to show how we can use the service to help us to set ourselves up financially for the next 5-ish years, a short time frame. What products do they have that help us do that? And then what do they have that help us to set things up for a longer time frame, 20, 30, 40 years for retirement, that kind of thing. I promised everyone I'd make this video after the sponsored one that was like 2 months ago. And so here we are making this. Part one, let's talk about who Public was a few years ago, because I was not a fan. So when I first reviewed them way back in October of 2021, I didn't think the service was very impressive. It was super simple. It was an investing brokerage, but it had like a really odd value proposition. It sort of had like a Twitter-ish social media account that's connected to your investing moves. So it'd say like, Brendan bought 2 shares of VTI. Brendan sold 3 shares of BND. Brendan made a new post and it says, I bet the stock market will grow for the next 40 years. And the best thing it had about it, like the best kind of value proposition, I guess, is that it didn't have payment for order flow. And instead it relied on tipping the service to generate revenue and kind of compensate for the fact that we're trading in the stock market. And so whenever you made a trade, it popped up with like this little dialogue box that said, would you like to leave a tip? It's like every coffee shop in the world in 2024 and beyond. Like, how would you like to tip us? How would you like to pay us even more money? But for me, this was such an odd combo. It's like, why would I want such a featureless investing brokerage and a bad social media app and combine the two? Like, why would anyone use this? So fast forward 3+ years, and I think things have changed so drastically that it almost feels like an entirely different service, an entirely different company. So part two is basically who they are today. And I would say in comparison to who they were 3 years ago, it's pretty great. Overall, the products they offer cover the bases pretty darn well. They've got investing in stocks and ETFs. They've got kind of ways that they can help you to invest. If you don't know, you can follow an investing plan. They do crypto. They've got a really cool like AI service thing that's for free that's tied into your investing account that you can ask questions. They even will give you their premium service for free if you have big enough account balance, which $50,000 is like not a small amount, but it's also not impossibly huge. So you don't even have to pay for the premium features if you want those. I feel like it's easy enough to use both on desktop and mobile. Like it's just become a full featured service that it never was before. So now for part three, what are products and services that help us in the next 1 to 5 years? How can we set ourselves up to win financially with the things they offer in the short term? The first thing they offer is a high yield cash account. And I feel like this is something that we've kind of gotten spoiled with lately because cash accounts have gotten so good. But if you look at their cash account right now, it's still 4.35% at time of recording. In the future, it's going to go down. But that's a very high yield cash account. And the fact that that's not their primary offering is pretty impressive. They've also got this new bond account thing that I think is really cool if you're willing to lock your money up for 1 to 4 years, somewhere in there. And if you keep it for the full term, you get 6.9%, which is pretty ridiculous. They've got a taxable brokerage account, which is very flexible. If you only want to invest for 5 years because you're saving for a house, but you don't want to leave it in the cash account, you can do that. And then they've also got treasuries. And I feel like depending on your flavor of how you want to keep your cash or how you want to invest it, all of those things are great options for you in the short term. Most investing companies, I feel like, only have sort of the investing brokerage and a high yield cash account. They don't even bother with the bond account or the treasuries. And so if anything, this service that was so minimal 3 years ago is now like maximal. It's like giving us even more features than a standard one or than what we would expect. And I think that's true at least in this realm of newer investing apps and brokerages, because if you go to like the really, really big boys, you go to like E-Trade or Vanguard or Fidelity or something, of course, they're big enough services that they should have a multitude of these kinds of things for you. But in this newer realm of younger investing brokerages who are simpler and who are less than 10 years old, I think Public is becoming, if not might already be, the most full-featured investing service you can use. So now for part four, let's talk about products and services that help us retire, maybe 20, 30, 40 years from now, or maybe even retire early. Like anything longer than 5 years, what products and services they have to help us do that? First of all, they offer IRAs, which are individual retirement accounts. I think IRAs are like magic for your money in retirement. If you want to check out my giant 20+ minute long video about IRAs that I can link at the end of this one, then dive deep into IRAs. But the long and short of it is IRAs help you save for retirement better than something like a taxable brokerage account. They also offer bonds. And so if you're into that kind of diversification, like a lot of experts recommend, then you can have your equities in your IRA. You can have your bonds kind of to balance things out a little bit. I personally have gotten more and more out of bonds as time has gone on because I guess I'm a little more aggressive, but a lot of people still really like bonds. And then the truth is that a taxable brokerage still works here in this context too of let's think about things in terms of 10, 20, 30 years from now. I think that a taxable brokerage is still a very viable option. It's of course useful in the short term, but using it in the long run can also set you up to get taxed a lot less on your gains because you've got long-term capital gains instead of short-term capital gains. And I think also, especially for those of us who are considering early retirement, I think a taxable brokerage is an integral part of that. Because if you have all of your money locked up in something like traditional IRAs or traditional 401k, even if it's millions of dollars, and then you go and try and retire at 50, it's just not going to work because you're going to have to pay taxes and fees on that money. And so the taxable brokerage account can be anything from your short-term emergency fund all the way to your long-term bridge account that bridges that spans that gap between the day you retire and the day you reach the federal retirement age, and you can access all that money without the taxes and the fees. So for me, I think a taxable brokerage account is literally integral to anybody's investing plan, no matter you're investing early or late or anything in between. But on to part 5. Things that public still needs to improve. And I think that this is an area that a lot of new brokerages fall victim to, and I'm just going to call it shiny object syndrome. What this looks like to us who are on the outside just using these services is that the services are so rapidly changing and sometimes failing. And public and a lot of other investing brokerages are trying to keep on the cutting edge, and they're adding new features and taking out the old ones, and they're doing all this so fast that it can be really difficult to keep track of what they're even offering. But it's also difficult to trust that the financial product that you choose today is going to be around 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So one example of this was the royalties section of Public, where they bought shares of the Shrek franchise, the music, just the music side, not the movie side, and they would allow you to invest in that. And so if Shrek did well, then we all potentially did well, and we got essentially like a dividend off of it. It wasn't technically a dividend, but it's basically that. And the promise was also that there was going to be more assets that were added to that portfolio over time with similar kinds of royalties being paid to it as people consume that media or otherwise generated revenue. And to my knowledge, there wasn't any other assets added besides Shrek. And then now the whole royalties program is kind of closing down. And so that's not a huge deal, but if you're counting on that product and then it goes out, that sucks. And I think a far worse example of that kind of problem generated from that kind of thinking, where you have to stay on the cutting edge and you have to be the fastest and you have to be the newest to the market as far as the financial technology world goes, is Yada Savings and all the other financial technology companies who are in bed with Synapse Bank, who not only went out of business as a result of Synapse failure, but they screwed up all the people's accounts that touched them on the way to the crash landing. And I think part of the reason that failure happened is everyone was trying to be first to market, get everything done as quickly as possible, no time to really, really think through and vet everything as well as they probably needed to create a kind of secure footing for these kinds of things to happen. And so it's sort of a easy come, easy go sort of a situation. And so long story long, I think when companies are so hungry to chase after the new sexy features, that draws in new customers, which is good. But if in doing that, the company fails to commit to their longevity and security and reliability over time, it does the opposite of generating new customers, because it's going to end up driving us away. We're going to go, well, I don't even know what I'm going to use 16 months from now because it's probably going to change. This sucks. The other thing that I think Public needs to address is the fact that their AI service that I've used a little bit, Alpha, it's called Alpha. The little bit that I've tried using it, it literally doesn't work. And that could be maybe I typed in some kind of weird prompt. I didn't ask it what color socks I was wearing. I said give me the earnings from the latest Microsoft call or something like that. But it literally didn't function for me. So obviously this is a newer thing. It's still bugs that got to be worked out and all that jazz. But if you're going to roll out a feature, at least make sure that it works well, especially when it's just kind of aggregating data. So I think that's something that could improve, is make sure that products are always fully functional as soon as they debut. But overall, I feel like I'm kind of nitpicking there because by and large, the products and services that are offered by Public are very attractive. It's very feature rich, very easy to use. There's little to hate here. And that's why I think they're my most improved investing service from the last 3 to 4 years, because they went from something I couldn't care less to use to something that I think is genuinely worth recommending. But now it's time for part 6, which is how do we compare Public to 8 or 10 other investing services? Well, to see that, you're going to have to keep your eye out for my annual mega video where I do an investing brokerage shootout. And I compare at least 8, sometimes 10 or 12 different investing services. And then I rate them to come up with the best investing services for the year. So this one will be 2025. I typically title it the best investing app for beginners just because I don't really believe in or try and encourage things like day trading and options trading and things like that, because I think for the regular people, we're kind of set up to lose doing most of that most of the time. So I lean towards the beginner side of things. But if you really want to see a particular investing services included in that shootout in that list, then leave me a comment right now, because I'm working on the video in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And so if you don't see this by then, it might be a little too late, but make sure and leave me a comment if you want something to be included. I can check it out. Here's a link to that mega IRA video where I go into depth on how to kind of choose the best one for you. Typically we choose between 2 different kinds, so it's a helpful way to choose between these 2. Thank you to my channel members. You guys get behind the scenes videos every now and then. You get priority reply to comments. There's a few member only videos out there. And then always you get early access to new videos. So thank you for your support. And if you want to learn the stock market in 4 hours, check out my investing class, link in the description. See you guys later. Bye.